This is Brian, Atlanta Hot Tub Center, and today on Tub Talk 101, we're going to talk about how to install your shock on your Covermate 3 lift system. And reason being is I've had some customers as of late either buy their own lifter or they don't disengage the lock and the shock pops off. And this is common. This happens, right? So there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. I'm going to show you the way that I kind of like to do it, which you have to be a little bit more careful doing it that way, but there are some easier ways as well, okay? So right here I have some tools. This right here is called a D-clamp. D is in David, a D-clamp. And this one isn't long enough, okay? But you can buy a D-clamp at like Home Depot or Lowe's, and it would make this process so much easier. You'd want the D-clamp to be as long as the shock, right? Because what you're going to do with the D-clamp is you're going to screw this and compress the shock. And once you compress the shock, it's just going to make it that much easier. You just hold this right here and pop it on there. Makes it super easy, right? Now, I don't normally do it that way, but I do have a lot of customers and people in the field that like to do it that way, okay? So I'm actually going to take, this is a locking shock. The only difference between the shock I had in my hand and this shock is this one will lock and unlock, okay? So basically what that means is if I push this, it stops the cover lifter from coming over, right? So you push this in and then the cover lifter can come over, okay? The reason I'm going to do this demonstration on a locking shock because this would be the more difficult one to do. The other one's pretty straightforward. So what we're going to do is, if you get close here, you can see up here there's a little C-clamp over here, okay? And there's a ball on the other side, and this C-clamp kind of clamps onto that ball. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a small flathead, okay? And we're going to slide it down in the groove here behind this C-clamp. And you see what I've done here, right? I've pulled this C-clamp out ever so slightly. You don't want to go too far because you can pop this C-clamp out. So you want to make sure that you take your time when you're doing this, right? And then you just pull it off, right? It's not that difficult, right? Pretty easy there, right? And I'll tell you, your first or second time doing it, it might be a little bit more difficult than what you're seeing in the video, right? I've done this a million times, so it does make it a little bit easier for me to do it. Now to put it back on, okay, now you can see when you put it back on, it doesn't line up quite perfectly, right? So what you do is you can push back on this or you can pull this forward and snap it back on there, okay? So you may have to put a little pressure on this, pushing this back, right? To line these two things up. You may have to torque it just a little bit, the framing of this cover lifter, to be able to snap this back on. And it's always better to do your final snap up top. Remember when installing your shock that you want the bigger part of the shock, this bigger part here, you want this facing down, okay? By design, so this smaller part goes up. Obviously with this having a lock, you can still see in here that this smaller part is inside of this little lock piece, okay? So let's do it one more time, okay? So I'm gonna take my time here. I'm gonna get in behind this, not pulling it out too far. I'm gonna pop it off. Right? Then you're going to torque this to a certain way, okay? Yeah, again, don't go too crazy with it. You don't want to break it. So, but you are going to have to torque it some to get it where you want it to be, and then you simply pop that guy on there, okay? And that's it. That's all, okay? So, if your shock falls off or you need to replace the shock on your Covermate 3 over time, this is how you would replace the shocks on your Covermate 3. This is Brian, Atlanta Hot Tub Center, and how to replace your shock on your Covermate 3 cover lift system. Thank you.